Yeah, welcome everyone to the On Point conference today. We're going to be discussing some topics around recording and releasing. My name is Shakk. I'm a rapper from Middlesbrough, and we have three other professionals joining us on the panel today. I was hoping we can go around and maybe each of us could introduce ourselves a little bit. So if it's okay, we'll start with Lisa.
Hello, yeah. Hi, I'm Lisa Murphy. I'm a music producer and also a lecturer in music production. I run a lot of projects kind of with singer-songwriters, quite a lot at the grassroots level with artists who are kind of starting out. And I also try and get myself involved in as many projects as possible to try and support more women into the music industry, you know, whether it's like as producers, engineers, or generally to help them use technology in their songwriting. So yeah, it's a bit about me.
Amazing. And is it Eva or Ava?
Eva.
Eva. And yeah, Eva, can we go ahead, go for it?
So I'm Eva. I'm the label manager at Come Play With Me, which is an artist development organisation based in Leeds. I also work at Long Division Festival, which is a multi-venue festival in Wakefield City Centre. So I kind of support with booking artists for the festivals and monthly gigs on all that side of stuff. I set up Grrls Do That Too a few years ago, just kind of putting on gigs to showcase women and people of marginalised genders in Leeds. And I also play in my band called Fika.
Amazing. And last but not least, we have Scott Lewis.
Thanks, Shakk. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott. I run Clue Records. I'm originally from Stockton-on-Tees, so I'm a Teesside boy, but I live in Leeds at the minute. Been here for like 12 years. So I run Clue Records, an indie alternative record label, working with artists from across the country. That'll turn 10 in November, so I've been doing that for quite a while. I work with Eva at Come Play With Me, so we work together on the label, and I also do workshops and mentoring there. I work for an organisation called Launchpad, which supports artists into sustainable careers and giving them knowledge about the industry and helping them do what they want. There is the lead mentor. I lecture at Leeds Conservatoire, which is formerly known as Leeds College of Music, and I manage an artist as well, a band called Team Picture. So yeah, a few things going on there, but yeah, that's me.
Amazing stuff. So we've got a wealth of knowledge on the panel today. So I think we'll kick things off. So like I said, we're going to be discussing some topics around recording and releasing. So first of all, I think we'll start with the right type of song. Maybe like if we like talk about song length, style, for example. So what do you think would make what actually makes a good song? Do you think, Scott?
Oh, that's hard. That's a big one, Shakk. I don't know. I think for me personally, it depends on the genre. I think it depends on the style of what you want out of it. But I think authenticity, you finding your own voice, and I don't think that comes immediately. I think I've been in bands and I've been done stuff before, and it's like it takes a while to find your feet and your comfortableness. I think you sort of ape certain artists, or you sound like what you're listening to, and that's totally natural and something you should do and should go through. But allowing yourself that time to find your voice, and whether that's how it sounds or what you want to say or what you want to communicate and what you get across, I think that's the biggest thing, because then that's when the originality comes, and that's when you can connect. And when me as somebody who listens to something, I want to hear what that artist has got to say, and then if it's interesting, I'm like, right, I want to know more about the artist. I want to dive into their world. So yeah, authenticity and finding your voice, I think is the initial thing for me, yeah, in terms of the style. Yeah,
I think that's such a good point. Authenticity. I mean, in rap especially, there's a thing that a lot of rappers do when they're starting out, and that's using a different accent.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been important to have the Middlesbrough accent when I'm doing it. Authenticity's always been a big thing for me, so that's great. And Eva, you're part of a band, aren't you, an indie grunge trio? So for you, what's the process of, or how do you know you've got the right song?
I think it takes a while. We're all into completely different music, and it makes writing songs very interesting. But I think we know we've kind of got a song that kind of all fits with us, you know, when we're playing, and it like afterwards we're kind of excited by it.
Yeah.
and we've played it and we're excited, and like we're excited to do stuff with it, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. And Lisa, you obviously work in the studio, so you've probably heard a plethora of different songs, artists and bands and songs in there. So for you, what do you feel are the key components to a good single?
I think Scott hit it like the nail on the head when he said, does the artist think it's authentic? Is it what they're going for? Because I have a lot of conversations with emerging artists who feel like they need to conform. Do you know what I mean? Where they feel like there's a set of rules that have been put out there that if they want to get radio play, they have to keep it short or snappy, or, and that they have to get straight into the chorus. And like, at what point are we losing the authenticity and just creating things that are just clones of each other? So what I normally say, if an artist approaches me and says, is this the song? Is this the first single I should put out? Or, what's your opinion? I always say to them, how do you feel about it? Where's it coming from for you? Do you feel it's authentic? Is definitely the word, I think. So yeah, I think if the song is right, the artist often knows the song is right, or the band knows the song is right. That's the one that they want to go with. You get that vibe out of what you're doing when you're working on the track and how it's coming together, and and it's about trying to be yourself, because if we all try and conform, I think, and make everything the same as each other, because we're trying to make sure that it gets played on radio, or that it gets streamed, then we're never going to find anything original and new, are we? So I just tell people to be themselves, I guess, which is kind of me just completely copying Scott's answers, I think.
No, I think it's because it's a really good answer. Authenticity is key, and I was thinking that maybe you would say, like you said, start with a chorus, make the song short, but we do lose so much of the actual art when we put them type of pressures on ourselves. So I think it's great advice for people that are coming up, that there's not really a formula as such. Like, good music will find its way out there if you make it, but it has to be authentic. But,
Sorry, that's how you build your fan base as well. I think, connect with people, show them what you're doing, show them that you're authentic, show them where it's coming from, and building your fan base and the people who'll stay with you because they like your music is much more important than trying to just get something out that's conforming to like 2 minutes to make sure it gets streamed or gets played on the radio or something like that. So it's much more important to be yourself so that people will connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
sorry, Shakk, I was going to say there's a good example of that at the minute. There's a band from Teesside called Benefits, so it's Kingsley Hall, and they are abrasive. Some people will find that horrible to listen to. Do you know what I mean? It's not made for the radio. It's not made to sound like anything else, but they've been their sort of peers or the people they look up to. So Sleaford Mods, Steve Albine from Shakk, all these amazing people are saying, Frank Black from the Pixies, huge artists, are saying, I've not heard anything like this in a while. And people are really connecting with it, resonating with it, and they're just being completely like following what they see and what they want it to be. So I think that's a really good example on a regional level as well. It's really, really inspiring.
They are a really good example, definitely. It blew my mind when I first heard them, and then I'm looking at the success that they're having, and I think it's absolutely amazing that they can just be their complete self, and it's so raw and gritty, and it just shows that it still resonates. So if you're true to yourself, true to your sound, and true to your fans and audience, it will resonate with them.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good time to move on. Say we do have the right batch of songs. We have the right songs. What's best to do with them songs? Is it best to release them as singles? Is it best to put them on an EP or an album? Let's say this is for an artist that hasn't put any music out yet. Let's say we'll start from there. You haven't put any music out. What's best to do? Start with singles, EP, or just go straight in with an album? And I'll let anybody take it away.
You fancy? I started next time, so I don't feel like I should. Let somebody else go on.
I was just hearing it from the record label's point of view before the producer's point of view, because we might have different opinions on it.
Yeah, and that'll be good as well. So, all right, from the record label, the first thing I'd take it back to is work out a bit of a 12-month plan, like what you want to do, and what you're going to do over that period of time. So yeah, as an outline, I'd do that, but start with a single, test the water, start working it out and putting stuff out there, and seeing out, seeing who's reacting to it, how it goes, where your fan base is. But I'd try to record, if you've got them, try to get a batch of songs together so that maybe you can work towards an EP, and then you've got that one thing there. Because the worst thing is if you release one song and it goes really well and it's like, all right, amazing, we've got a reaction. What's the next thing we're going to do? We've got nothing ready. It's not written, or it might be written, it's not recorded, right? And you're sort of scrambling around and you're chasing yourself immediately. So yeah, try to get a bit of stuff together. I think that as a new artist, you've got that freedom to, there's no expectation for you there, so you can take your time, you know what I mean? You've got that internal voice telling you, do it now, put something out, get going, start. But I think step back from that a bit and be like, right, okay, let's get some good bits together, work out, if you're in a band, speak to each other and like have a consistent message as well in what you're doing, and really set out a bit of a plan in terms of what you want to do, instead of just going and then you're just sort of following your nose after that and you're chasing yourself a bit and you're not quite sure what your next steps are going to be. So yeah, I think that, I don't know, that's how I see it anyway. I think it would be a good place to start and then just see how it develops from there.
So it's like building your audience and making sure you plan it out, because the worst thing is releasing your single and the next day you're sat there like, okay, what next? What do we do now? And you have to start the process again. So yeah, I think that's great. And Lisa, did you have a few points you wanted to raise?
So I was going to say, like, sometimes with an artist, it's the battle between sometimes the expense of, you know, if they're going to go and produce something in a studio with a producer and they're trying to work out their budget, and they're kind of a little bit worried about, right, how are we going to invest in ourselves to be able to have something you know, ready for the next release. And I totally agree with what Scott's saying there. Like, if you've got a few things that you're working on and you've got a few things in the bag, then if you get a good response from the first, you're already working on the second one. You're learning all the time and developing your ideas and your production or how you work with the producer. So everything's kind of building from that point. So I normally recommend, when I'm talking to artists, to try and think about that plan the same, about how we could have a few pieces of music on the go, working towards several single releases, because, you know, people have got quite a short attention span as well. So your single goes out, you spend a long time kind of, you know, putting out the message and trying to build some following around it and some listens, and then it's almost like, right, what have we got next? So, you know, often from a producer's perspective, we talk about early on, are there other ways to present the song to keep the listener interested or keep the audience interested before you drop the next single? So it might be, I don't know, maybe a remix, maybe somebody's going to cover it, maybe you've got a stripped back kind of acoustic version, you know, if it's relevant. But different ways, you know, like you'll have your music video or your lyric video. So different things you can keep dropping to keep your audience engaged in you as an artist. So you're not always talking about the same thing. Yeah. And hopefully that gives you the time while you're working on the next piece of music to get out there, because we live in a singles market in terms of music at the moment, don't we? It's like people drop a single and another one and they work their way towards a collection of work. If you start with an EP, you've put it all out there all at once, and you know, you're a little bit like, right, I've got nothing else in the bag, so it's a little have a few singles, and then you can always repackage some of those singles further down the line into that first EP. You know, the EP can feature some of the previous singles. So that's kind of my bit on that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you can literally build your audience and your contacts apart, like, you know, your contacts within the industry, because if you go straight in with an EP, you'll you're using the same contacts you would with the single. So you're exhausting them avenues straight away, and you've probably, there's like 4 songs on the EP that might not even really get the push that they deserve. So I think so. Like, we're creating a single. Is it best to start in a home studio, or is it best to go to a professional setting? I mean, Eva, do you record in a professional studio or a home studio?
Both. So, like when we were recording, it was like just before lockdown now. It was in like a family friend's massive home studio, but like he still had like the live room and all that stuff. And I think the most valuable thing about that is it was the space that we all felt comfortable and like unpressured, and we kind of had the space to like experiment a bit in ways that we hadn't before, because not being in that environment. And I think that was the most valuable aspect of being in a space and being like working with someone who you kind of already know, who kind of you already like understand musically on a level, and I think that was really important for us.
Yeah, amazing. And that was when you went into a professional environment, and you could. And what would you say the benefits are of working from home, or the cons even?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like being in the studio, you kind of have space. Like we were all quite kind of working on aspects of the song in different spaces, and I think that's something you don't get in a home environment.
Yeah,
I think
it just opens things up a bit more, doesn't it? If you're stuck at home too much, you need a different environment just to get the creative juices flowing a little bit. And what do you think about this, Scott? Do you think about the differences between working at home or a professional studio?
I think as a label, it's really important. I think a lot of the artists I've talked to and we've worked with, I will suggest producers and sort of say I think they would work really well with your sound. I think it's about finding the right studio, the right producer, and the right person for what you're doing. And there's a couple of amazing people in Leeds that I like regularly recommend and know that if they're one of our artists is going into them, we'll get a really good thing out of it. There are issues with that expense. Not everybody's got the money to be able to do that, and it's like, and these things that when somebody's good, a producer is good, it's not cheap, and rightly so. Like they have earned that right to charge what they're doing. People should be able to make money in the industry, so it's difficult. But yeah, I think that can be really beneficial. It's not only the point of the songs sound great and recorded well and produced well and mixed well and mastering as well is another thing, getting mastering really well. It's also some of the producers that I speak to and know, I know when they're sitting down with the band, it will be like, tell me about this part of the song, or like, have you thought about doing this? And it's an actual, they get involved in the craft of the song and not just like, right, you've wrote that, bring it out of the rehearsal room, stick it down on tape and it's done. They will bring the best out of that artist, you know what I mean? So for me, that can be really important because I know the end product will be so much more important. So I think, yeah, a studio and the right producer, a talented one, is really, really important. I think home recording, you can still get some amazing stuff, and I think it's right that it's about, I think if you're a home recorder, one of our artists bought at my grandma's house, is an artist we've released, Amber. She did all of her first EP at home. It was during lockdown, so that's how she did it. And then she sent over the stems. I said, send it to Alex, a friend of ours at Nave Studios. And he mixed it, added drums to it because she was just sort of doing digital drums. And it just made it so much different. And now they're going to start working together on producing her album. But it will be her. It's not like hand it over to the producer and I'll be the songwriter. She's still going to be heavily involved in the production and all of that. So then it brings her knowledge up and her skill set up, and it's sort of like, hopefully then one day, if whatever happens with her career, she's always also got that side of being able to be a producer or learning more about it and doing better things in the home studio. So there's definite benefits to both, but yeah, for me, a producer is vital. I think it's really important to get the best sound and that best end product.
So it's important to get in the studio to work with someone with expertise in certain areas that maybe, you want to be a songwriter or a singer or rapper, whatever it might be. Your expertise isn't in the actual producing. So it's good just to be around it, to learn. Even if you do want to work at home eventually, you want to be around it first, so when you're going back home, you've got everything set up right. It's sounding right, yeah.
Like over the shoulder of the producer, like it'll do the editing, I imagine, most of the time. You know, it was like being knows, like, what's that button do? What if I start like maybe don't grab it and start, if I start doing this, what happens? But you know what I mean? Like asking, what does that mean? How have you got that sound out of it? And then you just sponge it all in and take it all in, and then you learn more and more, and it'll affect your ability to produce. It'll affect how you think about writing, maybe, or just your brain just opens up to different soundscapes and ideas.
Yeah, I know for me as a rapper, when I went to the studio, and obviously he was working with a good producer, he opened my mind to melodies. I'd be rapping and he'd be like, why don't you lay this here? And it just opened my mind to completely new processes and stuff. So I think it is, but how hard is it to find the right producer? Like, what do you need to do to find the right producer, and how would you go about picking the right one? And can we start with Lisa there, please?
I knew you were going to bring that to me. You know what? I think it's kind of on the back of what we were just saying there as well, and into this question, but if you demystify the process of production a bit and have people understand a little bit more about what would happen if you work with a producer, I think it's really, really helpful. So a lot of this stuff that's been going on, during lockdown, where people have been kind of going, right, I can't get into a studio, and they've been sitting down with the software and trying to write and trying to get a good handle on the kind of how it works to build ideas in software. I found it really beneficial. I don't think it's been a bad thing necessarily, because it helps people to understand at what point they need to get involved with a producer. It's almost like it helps them to sketch out their ideas and understand what they're going for, and then know how to communicate what they want better to a producer. And I think it's been really beneficial. So I think the more we can demystify it, the more it helps people to know what they need and know how to kind of make that relationship with the producer. So I think one of the most important things in any type of music production is the relationship between the producer and the artist or the band. I really do. I just think that if you don't understand each other, or you can't communicate ideas to each other, you're never going to get that. It can be actually really demoralizing, because you're trying to do your best job for the artist. The artist is trying to get the message across, but still the product isn't right. So if you spend that time actually asking them questions and talking to them about, the songs, the influences, the sounds they like, what's brought them to you, it'll become apparent really quickly if you're the right producer for them. And I always think as well that people shouldn't be afraid to kind of say, no, that's not for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I try and, as a producer, work in a genre that I don't have experience in, if somebody approaches me, I always am really open about, I've not really worked much in that genre of music or with artists like that. Let me suggest some people who do. You want to be useful to that musician, even if it's not going to be you doing the job. Do you know what I mean? So building relationships is almost it's not about the gear, it's not about the space, it's about the first initial thing is about is that the right person for you, who's going to be able to understand, make you feel, like Eva was saying there, if you feel chilled and you feel relaxed and you feel yourself, it's your art at the end of the day. And if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to get the best result out of the artist band. So the relationship is absolutely key. Finding the right person, I think a lot, like with the music industry, a lot of stuff is word of mouth, isn't it? Going back to what Scott's saying there about he'll recommend producers to artists, because you build up an idea of who works in what area, what kind of music they do, what kind of results you've had. And also you can kind of go with the budget of the artist as well. If you know that they're kind of starting out and they probably, they've been working on demos at home and they'd want to kind of polish them up and get them mixed, you might suggest one person as opposed to book this studio for X amount of time with this producer, which is probably going to be a bigger budget. So there's lots of kind of factors in there, but relationship is key, and definitely immersing yourself in the industry, getting to know people and just asking them who produced you or who've you worked with. Just opening the conversation is really, really important, I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And so, Scott, do you think it's important to work with a producer if you really want to take things to the next level?
Yeah, depending on the artist, depending on what they're making, but yeah, I think it can bring a lot out of you. I think, again, one of the points I was going to say about is financially, obviously money always comes into it. I think one thing that can help, if you are working at home and you are producing at home, look for somebody who's a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer. That can be a good use of, instead of having to pay for the studio and the day rate and everything for the producer and all of that, you can find out what the mixing rate is per track or per EP or whatever it is, and then also the master. I think if you can record and learn those bits, and then they can put it all into a mix and then do a good master on it, that can bring so much more out of the track. Because I think it lends a new ear to it. It lends you, because one of the things as an artist, you are so caught up in your world of you listen to it over and over again, and you get to a point sometimes you can't finish it because you're just so lost in it. You can't see the wood for the trees. You don't know when the track's finished. If you can get everything recorded to a point where you're happy with it and have that sort of demo track, the outlay track of where you think it's mixed and done, then give that away to a producer who can mix it for you. Just take the stems and mix it, get it mastered well. I think that can do wonders for it, and it's a much more affordable way of doing it. So I think, yeah, music, there's never one right answer. Do you know what I mean? The music industry, I think it's about what you feel you need and what you can afford, and all the things you've got to encounter in that. I think producers can be really important. But yeah, I think, as Lisa said, the relationship in that is massively important. If you start working with the right producer, you get on, and you're even able to have that sort of confrontation at times and say, no, like, that's your idea, that's fine, but I'm the artist and I think this is the right way to go with it. And you can talk about that and come out of it well, it's fine. But some of the artists I'm working with have a long-term relationship with producers and continue to go back to them all the time. Yeah. So they're like the extra member of the band. You know what I mean? It's that's how much they actually bring to the project. So it can be really, really important. Yeah, but there are definitely ways of still getting a really good mix, a really good final track out of it. With if your budget is lower.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Eva, I was just wondering, have you worked with multiple producers while you've been with your band? And did it take time to find the right person?
So we've recorded with friends and stuff before, but I feel like we found when we were working with like close friends, it was always a bit weird. Like, I feel like you couldn't be like as honest and upfront if you didn't like something, because they'd always just get offended. So I think for us, like, working with someone that we were pretty close with as a mate wasn't the best thing. And it did take us time to realise that.
Was that because, like, if you need to hit deadlines and you're like, come on, man, like, will you hurry up? Yeah. You're gonna wreck the friendship at the same time.
Yeah, basically. And I think, like, I think because we all are so different and have just different priorities, it just added another level of pressure that wasn't needed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's just, it's a lot of pressure that isn't needed, like you say. So I guess that those are, it's a big benefit to having somebody that you don't really have a past with or friendship, because it's strictly music then, and then you build your relationship from the music, which is really good. So what about if you don't have the money to do these things? So you start from scratch. You don't have the money to spend X amount of hours in a studio with a producer. What would be the best starting point from there? Or is there any ways around it? How can you find investment and things of that nature? We'll start with Scott, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I think one thing at the minute, I think there is funding out there and there's money out there, and there's also organisations out there that are there to support. So I think on a funding side, there's things like Help Musicians UK have got a fund called Do It Differently, or they've got their MOBO award as well. So those are up to £3,000. So that is a different scale. It's about, like, you've got to write the application, you've got to do that well. So obviously you need to be able to do that. But it's absolutely achievable to get those amounts, or at least to keep on going in for it and doing that. So I think those are definitely two to be looking into. And then there's like PRS Foundation. There's all sorts of different funds out there. So there's a Music Leads who I work for. They've got a site that collates sort of open funds that are open at the moment. So I can share that link with Dave afterwards if he wants to send it around to people, so people can see what sort of money is potentially out there. It's difficult because it's not guaranteed. But yeah, obviously, like, we've had a lot of our artists supported by those things. So I think that's one thing to look at. Generator in the Northeast as well are an amazing organisation that are very supportive and are looking to bring artists and musicians in and projects in to try and support. So there's ways of doing that. Maybe there's sort of free studio time you can get, or at least speaking to people. So yeah, it's hard. Get into a studio without any money is extremely difficult. I think trying to find like free software or things like that online, if you can work from home on your laptop and start producing, and just start working on things and working it out, there are always ways around it. Try to be crafty and like, yeah, just use what you can. You like be resourceful in what you've got. There are ways to do it without money. Starting this label, starting Clue, we didn't have a penny at the start. We had nothing. So it was all about, right, what can I do? What effort can I put in? Which equates to like, it's like there's money there, we don't have it. So I'm going to put the effort in, and that'll be as much as that is in money, if that makes sense. And we just grafted away and kept on going. Yeah,
you have to find a way. And Lisa, would you advise someone to maybe invest in their own recording equipment, or would you tell them to save up, and if they've got the right songs, to save up and make sure they book that studio time in with you and get it recorded properly?
Do you know there's no harm in them starting to sketch out the songs, though, again, understand what they want from the song, is there? So I fully encourage people to if they're interested in it, to start looking at just sketching out ideas at home. You don't have to have everything up to the polished level for release. You'll know what your strengths and weaknesses are, but why not use it as a tool to help you write? It might give you different perspectives on how you write in your songs. If you experiment with different instruments you wouldn't normally have, because you've got them as software instruments in your DAW and your Logic or Ableton or whatever you're using, it might have an impact on your writing process. It might help you to like see what things would sound out, like try ideas like stacking vocals and harmonies, and then be like, oh yeah, they do or don't work. You could do all that at home before you invested any time in the studio. But coming back to the funding thing, another couple of ones as well. There's some artists will like try and crowdfund. If they've got a good following, they'll try and like crowdfund to be able to pay to get in the studio. Or some artists will like try and get out there and gig to raise some funds. I mean, they'll try and raise money from like selling merch and things like that to build up a fund that they'll just always plow back into recording. I've had some artists work with me this last year who were successful with getting, again, it's writing the bid can be tricky, but they got the Developing Your Creative Practice Fund from Arts Council. So that's another one you can apply for. That's up to £10,000 to try and develop yourself, to try and afford some time to like get in the studio and get better at like producing or recording, So there are funds out there, but it's just that kind of, right. There's a lot of help as well, but you have to allocate the time to really think about what you want to write in that application, really talk about how it's going to benefit you. But I do know a lot of artists, genuinely do, who have got the support of their fans that they will invest in them, the crowdfunding, or they've got like Patreon set up where they like give their Patreon followers. What do you call a Patreon follower?
Patron. Yeah, maybe.
I know, just maybe for Patreon,
yeah. Well, like they've got like, they give exclusive stuff out to them, like here's the demo that I recorded at home, or like here's like the first listen to this song, or help me write this verse or whatever. They've got all this really nice stuff going on with them, and they're given a monthly fee to help support that artist, and then they put that to recording. So it's like all these little hacks, isn't it? All these little ways you could think about trying to fund your recording, because ultimately, I will be honest, if you really want to get the best result, the best chance of that song really standing out for all the best parts of the songwriting and the performance, then getting a professional on there to at least finish it, if not help you to develop it. So get a producer to getting it recorded or mixed professionally, certainly mastered professionally, will make a massive difference to the sound of the track, which obviously has an impact on the listener. You can have the best song in the world, but if it's like being recorded on your mobile phone, it's going to not do the song justice, and you want to give that song its best chance.
Absolutely. And I think we've had some great advice for people at all levels. If you're just starting out, it might be best just to make some demos at home and build up your investments, build up some money so you can get in the studio and all the rest of it. I am a bit conscious that we're running out of time, and I want to really discuss some have a discussion around DIY strategies on releasing and maybe approaching labels as well. So we've got roughly about 10 minutes. If we can spend a little bit of time on release strategies and maybe social media. If I can ask you, Eva, how important is social media to your release strategies?
So important. Like, everything is on social media now, and it takes a while to kind of work out what things work for you as a band, because not everything works for everyone. So you do need to kind of experiment with that kind of stuff. But if you're not active on socials, you just lose out on so much now.
Yeah.
And
it can be a bit draining, can't it, as well, being active on social media all the time.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's finding a balance.
Yeah, like I hate doing band socials. It's my least favorite thing to do ever. But you just have to do it because it's just so important to building an audience and a following, and being seen to being active in the scene as well.
Yeah, it is. And Scott, so you've got your single, and you want to release it. How long should you give it before you actually drop it? So you've made the song, you've got the song already. How long do you want to wait before you actually release that song into the public? Its release day. How long till that date? And what do you do after it as well?
Yeah, I think from the point of having it finished, I'd be giving it like at least 6 weeks until that release date. So that's to get it, and I deliver it to Spotify as early as you can, so it can sit in the back and of the other streaming platforms. So it can sit in the back end of that, and you can pitch it to Spotify nice and early through Spotify for Artists. You can do all that. You can start planning out what you're going to do in terms of, like, you're going to set up a pre-save. You're going to get people excited about it. When are you going to announce it? How are you going to keep that momentum going up to the actual release? So yeah, I'll be doing all that, getting your press shots together. Are you doing a DIY press campaign? Working out who you're going to reach out to, get some press shots done. Have a shot at writing a press release yourself, or speaking to a friend who's talented at writing, and try to pull in some favors and some people that have got those skills. So yeah, from the point the track is finished, at least 6 weeks from that. Don't rush too much. Make sure everything's right. And also, I think me and Eva were talking about this yesterday. I think one thing that's difficult is the post-release thing. It's like once your track's out, it's all the hype and the build-up and everything, the anticipation, the excitement of coming to the track. And then the track's out, and a lot of artists are just like, right, the track's out now, here you go, everybody get it. And then sort of leave it from there. And it's like, no, this is the point to kick in and start, really, because this is when people can actually hear the tracks. You know what I mean? That's when you want to. So I think what Lisa was saying about whether it's different versions, can you do like a stripped back acoustic one? Is there a remix there, lyric video, music video, that content going? Showing what the demo was like compared to what it's like. You see a lot of that on TikTok at the minute, where it's like, oh, this is the early demo of it. This is what it's turned into. Like, the transformation of it, talking about it, explaining it, showing what your influences were, all that sort of thing. I think those are things that you can do after the release. It's about, you're saying the same thing. What you're basically saying is, listen to my music, but you're trying to find different ways to say it, so you're not boring your audience, you're keeping them on board, and you're keeping them engaged, and you're getting your personality across. So yeah, I think hopefully that helps, and that's a couple of ideas on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. If you keep, so you've got a trailer to a music video, for instance, and you might just keep posting that trailer. Listen, watch my video, and they've seen it so many times, so it's just killing your engagement. So keep things exciting and fresh, and try and find ways of turning the same content into different pieces of content, like you say, remixes, acoustic versions, behind the scenes stuff. I think that's all really really good advice. And Lisa, what do you think is like the most common mistake artists make when it comes to releasing music?
That thing that Scott's just said there, they just put it out and they go, right, it's out now. Like, I honestly think that's the thing. And also not having a strategy, like what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
Like that's just a big thing. Like, I was talking to an artist yesterday. She's had some good engagement with her track even before it's out. So she's had some good radio play and things like that, some good interest, some magazine and blog kind of reviews. And I was like, this is really good. You need to jump on the back of this. What's next in the pipeline? She's like, and it's because it's the first track that's been put out. But I said, this is really great engagement early on. What can you be doing? Realize that it is quite it can be quite labor intensive if you're going back to the idea of the socials. So like deciding which socials you're going to prioritize and which things are for you as well. Because I know there was a band last year saying to me they'd started to use TikTok because they knew TikTok was important to reach an audience, but they just didn't know what to put on there because they were like, am I supposed to like dance around and like point at things and hope that things go up on the screen? And they were like, it's just not us. And then the management just went, no, just do what is you and what your fans would expect, and think about what people would want to know about your track. They want to know how you wrote it, or what you're like as a band, or the rehearsals, or just like stuff like that. Try and talk about the real things and not just be do this fake stuff. If it's not you, it's not you, you know. But I think the biggest mistake definitely is not having a strategy, not going, this is how I'm going to promote the song, and or just putting it out and just going like, oh well, it'll just, you know, or okay, I'll just keep posting, listen to my song, listen to my song, listen to my song.
Yeah.
Like, try and, you know, mix it up a bit and make people still know that you're alive in between releases as well, that you're still doing stuff. And that they want to engage with you, and don't be all kind of like, it's me, you know, I've released a song, listen to me. Well, why should we listen to you? Because in between releases, you don't engage with us as fans, you know, so how can you engage your fans? That kind of thing.
Yeah. You can't expect something off someone if you're not giving, so you're expecting everybody to like and share your stuff, but are you even interacting with your audience when they comment on your post?
Things, if you're a local artist who's kind of working their way up, support local artists and listen to their music, and just, you know, build a community of people who are all supporting each other. And then their fans might come and listen to your music and vice versa, you know, like that's like, it's something you need to commit to and think about, not just be like, okay, it's done, I'm putting it out, you know. So I think from this, what I'm taking as well is like, planning is so important. And I think with musicians, you make a song, you just want to release it. Like, I want to release it, and it's all about planning each step, and it sounds like a lot to do, but in reality, it makes every day so much easier when you've got a strategy and you've got a plan and you can put it in place. We're going to start wrapping it up, but Eva, what do you think is a common mistake artists make when it's time to release music?
I think it's what we've all just said, like not having a plan.
Yeah,
like you can't just, this isn't the kind of thing that you can just wing. Like you need to know what you're going to be doing.
Planning is absolutely massive. And yeah, we've only got a few minutes left, so I was just hoping we can come to each of you, and if you can, each of you give us a top tip for artists that are listening to this at the moment. We'll start with Scott.
Okay. Sort of two for me. I think two big things for me. Authenticity. I think we've mentioned it. I mentioned it at the start. Lisa just touched on it again there. Even said it. Like, I think that authenticity, find your voice, find who you are, find out what you're saying. That is it. That is what will stand you out from everybody else. So focusing on that, and community. But as Lisa just said, it's not your success at the expense of everybody else. It's like, if they're coming up, you can come up at the same time. If you, the minute, particularly in Leeds, there's a big bit of hype and stuff going on. There's bands like Yard Act, English Teacher. There's some amazing artists and bands coming out of Leeds at this point in time. So other ones think, all right, now there's a bit of a light shone on Leeds at the minute, which is amazing for us. So you can succeed alongside others. So yeah, authenticity and community, two biggest things for me.
Fantastic. Lisa?
Can I steal Scott's answers? Yeah, try not to constantly compare yourself to everybody else as well. So yes, like, support people and be part of that community, and, you know, uplift other people where you can and support them, but don't, you know, compare yourself and go, oh well, they're here and I'm here. You know, you're on your own journey as well, so you're trying to be authentic, you're trying to immerse yourself into your community and be part of it, and you're trying to make your music the best it can be at that point in your career. So whether that is that you can afford to work with a producer or afford to go in a studio, or whether it's that you are building up your tracks at home and then looking to get people involved, you know, to help you mix it or get it out there, you know, whatever it is that stage you're on, that's your journey, you know. So look at these other people around you who have been successful and know that you can get there. You know, it is achievable, but it is hard work. So, you know, I think we've talked over and over about like just being really committed and authentic, and, you know, it's hard work, but if you stick with it and you be yourself, you know, and work with the people around you, then you can do it. And the other thing on that, just from one earlier on as well, if you've not got a great amount of money and you want to work with a producer, what about working with a producer who's starting out as well, you know, and come up together? You know, somebody who's like still at the beginning level of their production career, and you can work together as you both build your career as well.
And that could apply to even like a videographer, photographer, manager. Build with a team. That's beautiful.
You know, everybody gets asked in music, who did you work with before, or what have you done before, or, you know, what have you been doing to this point? So everybody needs each other. So like building a portfolio of work with somebody else who's emerging in their area of the music industry as well could be a really good way to start out if you've not got a budget, if you're kind of doing this DIY.
Yeah, perfect. So Eva, can you give us your top tip for artists, please?
Yeah, I think on top of what everyone else said, I think just trust your gut. Like at the end of the day, you're going to be the person that knows your music the best, knows what you want to get out of it the most. And I think if you kind of compromise on that, then that's gonna, so trust your gut.
Don't compromise. I think that's a great way to end it as well. Like I said earlier, the key things I've taken from this is working hard, authenticity, planning, lots of planning, networking, creating a community and telling your story, and also not compromising, which is a great addition to that list. So thank you again for joining us on the On Point panel. Thanks to everybody for listening. I think we've had a great session with a wealth of information provided, and hope to see you all next time.